Wonderful. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Jennifer Hashley and I'm the director of the New Entry Sustainable Farming Project. And we're excited to have you here tonight for our agriculture technology platforms and online software to manage risks workshop series. So really glad you're here. I'm going to give a brief overview and then we will get on with our presentation for the evening. So this is sorry, my slides are not advancing. There we go. It's just slow. This is put on by the New Entry Sustainable Farming Project, and I'm just going to try to go briefly through our slides to tell you a little bit about ourselves and the other workshops that are coming up in this series. But I'd encourage everyone while you're listening to this introduction, if you want to add your name to the chat, your name and your pronouns, your farm name and where you're located. It's just helpful to know where everybody's coming from and who is in our audience tonight. If you'd like to add your pronouns to your name when we have our Q&A later, if that's important to you, we'd love to make sure that that's recognized. And just ask that everybody keep yourself muted until the Q&A session and add your questions to the chat so we can monitor that as we go. If there's something that you have a question about in the moment that the speaker's asking, I'm happy to pause the speaker and ask your question, or we can wait until the Q&A session. But if it's coming in throughout, that might be helpful so we can make sure that your question is addressed in the moment. And the session is being recorded, obviously, so you're welcome to keep your video on. Maybe when we have the Q&A, we'd love more people to turn on their videos so that we can have more of a discussion among the folks that are here. So just a quick background on New Entry. Our mission really is to improve our local and regional food systems by training the next generation of farmers. And we want farmers as the stewards of our land and feeders of our communities to be successful. So we want to make sure their food gets to everyone as well. So that's a lot of what we do. And we do that through three main programs: our farmer training programs, our food hub aggregation and distribution program, and our national capacity building work with other beginning farmer training programs across the country. And our farmer training program does a bunch of these things through courses and workshops. And we run an incubator farm program, which offers land access to up to 3 years to farmers to get started. I just wanted to put in a plug. We will be offering our next crop production course if you need to get hands-on experience starting in the spring, the 15-week course. We do our business planning course, which is an 8-week course. Our next session will be starting on January 4th on Tuesday evening. So if you're interested in starting to develop a business plan, they're all online right now. Encourage you to sign up for that. You can also learn more about other workshops and things, and this whole workshop series is being posted to our YouTube channel. You can get a virtual tour of our program if you're interested in that as well. As I mentioned, the Food Hub does a bunch of different things to get food to consumers through food access, the CSA, and we also are gearing up for some other market-based training over the winter on food safety and post-harvest handling. So stay tuned for those workshops. And then our national capacity building with apprenticeship and incubator programs across the country. So this series that you're participating in now is part of this risk management workshop series. We just completed our legal risk farmland focused workshops. So those are all online and recorded and ready for you to view if you're interested in learning about legal considerations, financial readiness, financing, and leasing farmland. And now we're moving into our next session with this financial risk management. We're really focusing on looking at some of the online software platforms and tools that are helping farmers manage financial risks through tracking financial data, production information, so you can make good decisions, how you keep track of this, whether you're moving from Excel to QuickBooks or even using your point of sale data from your sales to make business decisions. And then we'll move into our production risk management modules on really looking at your production records and how you keep field records for organic certification. And then move into marketing. So there are so many of these online e-commerce sales platforms out there right now. It's mind-boggling. So we'll try to help folks navigate through a lot of those offerings and sort through what might be best for you. So that's the series. All the resources that I mentioned will be posted afterward to this resource website. We're going to develop some fact sheets from a lot of the resources that our speakers develop and suggest for further learning, and you'll be able to go back and revisit any of these in the future at this site. And this is all free thanks to our funder, the Northeast Risk Management Extension Program, which is a program of the USDA, except that they require us to capture knowledge gain from these workshops as part of an evaluation process. So I'm going to quickly launch a poll to try to capture your knowledge of this topic before we start the workshop. And then at the end, after we finish the Q&A session, I'll just pop the same questions up hopefully you will have learned something. So I'm going to share the polls right now and introduce our speakers while you're filling that out. Can everyone see the pre-assessment questions? Basically 2 questions. So how would you rate your knowledge of financial risks on a scale of 1 to 5, from no knowledge to feeling like you're an expert? And then the second question is, how would you rate your knowledge of financial record keeping systems, from not knowing much about it to knowing a lot? So hopefully those are pretty easy questions for you to answer. Here, we'd love to have everybody take a crack at those while I introduce our speakers tonight. So first up, we're going to hear from Jeff Cole, who's the Client Services Specialist for the Carrot Project, and he also works part-time at the Mass Food Systems Collaborative as their Agricultural Network Coordinator, and he's going to tell us a little bit about the Carrot Project's financial services and supports. And then Michael is going to lead us through their FarmOS web-based application and talk through how farmers can use that and keep all kinds of records and data collection there. And then Janine Russell from Farmbrite is going to help us learn about Farmbrite's offerings and how that can be a solution for farmers. And then Rich Foucher of Farcher Farms, who is one of Farmbrite's customers, is going to share his experience as a farmer using these platforms and how he uses the tool to make business decisions. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Jeff to get us started. Let me stop sharing. And I will end the poll.
And I will unmute. Very good. Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Jennifer. The Carrot Project focuses on financial data collection and analysis. So that's our side of the risk management process for this evening. We serve farmers and food entrepreneurs facing barriers to getting support and capital. Our priority is startup and early stage farmers and agricultural business owners who have low to moderate incomes, but we do also work with more established businesses when we are able to. Farmers and fishers should be based in Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut, use sustainable methods, and sell some or all of their products locally or regionally. Food entrepreneurs must source their ingredients from these types of farmers and fishers and sell some or all of their goods locally or regionally. To serve BIPOC women and immigrant entrepreneurs, we partner with organizations that primarily serve or are led by these populations. And in 2022, we will expand our services to help historically underserved farmers access FSA, Farm Service Agency, USDA Farm Service Agency, loan, disaster assistance, and risk programs. Our core services, well, give me a second, because looks like my presentation is not, there we go. Our core services are trainings and workshops, loan programs, and one-to-one business advising and coaching. I'm not going to read this. I think you all can read it for yourselves. All of these services are free or cost shares. The determinants of that are household income and equity considerations, and sometimes location. As I said, we're focusing on collecting financial data and using that financial data to make sound business management decisions in the course of running your businesses. Our loan programs, as you can see, we provide guarantees for between $5,000 and $50,000, but the actual loan program can go up to about $275,000 with certain lenders that we work with. The business advising and coaching happens with outside professionals that we hire to provide a high level of expertise to your particular issue, and they will work with you to define exactly what it is you want to accomplish, define a path to get there, and then actually, if you will, sit down with you and make it happen. And here's some contact information for me, phone number or email. Email is usually a little easier because I do have those 2 jobs, and I do end up working frequently until 7 or 8 o'clock at night. So sometimes I can respond to an email when other people aren't necessarily looking for one. And that's it for me. So I will turn it over to Mike.
Great, thanks, Jeff. I'll go ahead and share my screen. All right. So yeah, my name is Mike Stenta, and I'm here to represent the FarmOS project. And so FarmOS is an open source farm planning and record keeping application. I started it in about 2014 or so, a little bit before that, before it was kind of officially named FarmOS, as a way to just kind of have a record keeping application for my own records and for other farms that I was working with at the time. And over time, it's kind of grown into a community project. So we've got a number of volunteers and organizations kind of helping to push it forward. Open source, I'll talk a little bit more in a minute, but open source basically means that the code that is used to build FarmOS is freely available. So anyone can download the code, they can change it, they can make it do new things, they can contribute those changes back to the project. And so we can kind of all work together on this. So I also provide hosting for FarmOS through my company Farmier. So that's one way that we support the project, is through kind of software as a service. You can also host this yourself, but if you want some help with that, I can help. So real quick, the big picture goals of FarmOS are really to be able to collect anything. So all your activities and observations that are happening on the farm, the inputs you're applying and when you're harvesting things. FarmOS aims to be kind of like your database. So everything that you want to keep track of, you can put into FarmOS, and there's a place for it. It's not very opinionated on what you do or don't collect. It just tries to create some standard buckets to put that information in. So you can kind of consider it as like a step up from spreadsheet-based systems. So if you're kind of outgrowing your spreadsheets and you want to be able to collect other things like photos or sensor data, or be able to assign tasks to other people and have it accessible to others, you can give FarmOS a try. So aside from being able to collect everything, it also serves as kind of a database explorer, more or less. So you can be able to find and manage the records that you're keeping. So there's ways to search and navigate through FarmOS either visually in a map-based interface, which I'll show in a little bit, or via record type. So you can say, well, I know that I'm looking to find out when I harvested and how much I harvested of this particular crop. So you can either go through the crop, you can go to your plant list, you can go to your harvest logs. There's a lot of different ways to kind of get to the same records. And it's accessible from anywhere. So it runs on a web server, so you can host it like you would host a website, and then anyone can access that. So you can access it on your phone, on your tablet, or on your laptop. We're also working on an offline mobile application for kind of the day-to-day tasks. So a simplified interface with quick forms for data collection in the field that then works offline, and you can sync back to your FarmOS later. And one of the most important things about this project, I think, is that you own the data. You can keep this database yourself. It's not going into some central service, and therefore it also won't disappear if that other service goes out of business or something. You can manage that and host it. But at the same time, there is value in sharing data either with other farmers or with researchers or organizations that you're partnering with. So we're building ways to opt in to kind of share that, to share and connect with others. So outside of FarmOS, we're building sort of a larger community called GOAT. And so GOAT is the Gathering for Open Ag Tech. We had our first in-person gathering in 2018. We had another one planned for 2020, but that ended up getting canceled, unfortunately. But we're looking forward to having more. We also host hackathons where people get together to work on things together. So you can check that out at gotech.org. So I mentioned that FarmOS is open source, and it's also considered free software. And not necessarily free in the monetary sense, although it is free, you can download it for free, but free in the freedom sense, meaning you are free to use this code however you see fit. You're free to change it. You're free to share those changes with others. And the free software movement is something that kind of started in the 60s. And a lot of people are using free and open source software without even really realizing that. Chrome, Android, Linux, a lot of systems that you use today are actually free and open source software. And one of the benefits of open source software is that it's a cumulative development process. So we're all kind of, working together. It's very scalable in the sense that anyone can kind of contribute to this, and over time it can grow to become a new standard. Oftentimes, open source software is a little bit rough around the edges starting out, but then as time goes on, it can get better and better as more people contribute. So other examples of open source communities are FarmHack. You may have heard of this. FarmHack is actually focuses on open source hardware. So this would be if you're designing a tool that helps you in the field, like a root washer or something like that. You can actually document the plans for that and share it online with others, and other people can build it or they can make modifications to it. So it's the same basic idea, but instead of software, it's in the hardware world. So I'll just go through the high-level overview of FarmOS before I show some things. So FarmOS basically represents all of the records in a couple of different ways. First and foremost are assets. So you can use FarmOS to keep track of all different kinds of assets. You can put in your land and draw it on a map. You can document what plants you're growing, animals, equipment, materials and inventory, seed inventory, and many more. It's a modular system, which means that other developers can build their own modules that you can then download and install. So for example, we have a beekeeping module and a fungi module for mushroom cultivation and things like that. So it's extensible in that way. The other record type are logs. So logs are the things that you're doing day to day. And you kind of link those together with the assets to record what you're doing. So for example, you might have a plant asset with a seeding log for when you seeded it, and a harvest log for when you harvested it, and multiple input logs for things that went into it. So we really try to create this general way of storing and representing records so that over time, and then people. So you can give people logins to this, so your workers or your organic certifier can log in and view records too if you needed to grant that kind of access. But over time, you can kind of build this rich database and network of information, linking your assets to your logs, to your people, so that you can easily find things again in the future. And over time, that can grow and grow into a nice database. Beyond that, we're also building things for planning. So we have a beta module for crop planning, where you can use this to plan out the different crops you're going to be growing in a season. And these basically just get translated into assets. So your plants, like for example, your 2020 propagation house leek, and then logs, which would be when you're seeding it, where you're seeding it, when you're transplanting it, and when you're harvesting it, that kind of thing. Similarly, we had some sponsorship to build a grazing plan module. And so this was kind of designed around the holistic management planning process, where you can map out your paddocks and move your animals from paddock to paddock in a way that allows for recovery time of the pasture in between those. So right now, I'm going to show version 2 of FarmOS, which is what we've been spending a lot of time on building in the past year or so. There's a lot of improvements over version 1. So yeah, we're hoping to release it very soon, hopefully this coming January. You can also download it and try it now in progress as well. And so for more information, you can go to farmos.org to learn about the project and lots of other resources there, and join the community. So there's a lot of ways that you can get involved in the development of this software too. So I'll show a couple of those really quick. We've got an active forum where you can go on and discuss different ways of doing record keeping in FarmOS. We also host a monthly call. Our last one was just yesterday, in fact. So we invite the community to come and just talk about whatever they want to talk about. We're right now we're also working with this large organization called Open Team, which is pulling together a lot of different organizations, all with the goal of kind of building open standards together to try to support interoperability between different software platforms so that we can exchange information. It's got a heavy research focus too, with a focus on soil health and research projects, which I can go into if we have time. That's also, we get a lot of funding by working with organizations to build out features. We also have sort of a crowdsourced funding approach with this opencollective.com/FarmOS. So if you're interested in becoming a backer, that's how you can do it. And again, it's all open source. So we have a GitHub repository, FarmOS/FarmOS. So you can go there to view the code and download it, or see who's contributing to it and what the activity looks like. All right, so enough of that. I'll jump into actually showing some things now with FarmOS. So this is what the dashboard looks like when you log in for the first time. As you can see, it has a focus on the map-based interface first and foremost. You don't have to map things out, but it definitely helps for your navigation purposes. So you can map out all your different fields and keep track of what things are where, and you can move them from place to place and keep a record of when they moved. So I'll just show really quick drawing a new field. I'll say I'm adding a land asset right now. Well, first, let me just show. So in the records here, you can see we've got our assets and our logs. So these are all the different types of assets you can put in. And again, these are all modules, so you can turn these on and off depending on what you're actually interested in. Similarly with logs and log types, you can store your lab test information. There's also sale and purchase log types, which I'll show in a minute for financial record keeping. So if we were to add a land asset really quick, we would just kind of come in here and we could zoom in and draw. Let's map this little field right here. So we'll just kind of draw that out. And then once we save that, then we've got that in there that we can start recording. Oops, I have to give it a land type. So we'll say this is a field. We can start recording logs against that. So if I take a soil test, I can record that as a lab test. And you can just see the history over time of this field and of this piece of soil. You can also archive this if you're changing over time. And all of these can be organized hierarchically, so you can kind of map out and keep track of where everything is. Here's what the list of plant assets look like on this kind of demo site here. So these would be all the different plants that you're growing. So each one would have a season associated with it, a crop or variety associated with it, and they can be in a location, but they can also move from location to location with your transplant starting in a greenhouse and then transplanting it out. You can sort and filter these things. So you can really have a large list and archive them when the year is over. Animal assets work exactly the same way, as do equipment and everything else, basically. So you can keep track of where your animals are. You can come and, if you're moving them from paddock to paddock, you can select the ones you're moving and click Move Asset. Specify where they're going and when, and so you can keep track of that. You can also use this for planning purposes. So I can do this in the future. I can say it's 2022, and we're going to do it on January 1st. And then, so this allows you to build a rich history over time of where your animals have been and what you're doing with them. Like I said, it's a modular system. So FarmOS itself comes with a whole bunch of different modules you can enable. So you can see here, I've got land assets, plant assets. I could also enable material assets and water assets, compost, birth logs, those kind of things. But then there's also community modules that others are maintaining and contributing. So for example, the beekeeping module or the fungi module. And that just allows for a lot more extensibility and flexibility moving forward. So other folks are building quick forms and tools for common types of data entry. And then they can just offer those up for others in the community to download and install. I'll show really quick another farm that's focused more on livestock here. So this is out in California. And they are using sale and purchase logs to record both animal sales when they butcher sheep, but also purchases of materials and all the things that are going into their operation. So over time, this builds a very rich set of records, which can then be queried in different ways or exported to CSV files that can be imported into other programs like QuickBooks or even just into Excel, where you can run your own reports of any kind that you want. So over time, we'll be building more reporting directly in FarmOS, but we also have the ability to export. For any programmers out there, if you're kind of aware of what an API is, we also have the ability to programmatically push and pull data from FarmOS. So you can go to, for example, your FarmOS URL /API/log/input, and this will give you a machine readable version of all of your input logs. So you could write like a simple program or script that pulls this data out and does whatever you want with it, essentially. So a lot of organizations and research folks are using this as a way to collect data from farms and then run more aggregate analysis on that. So then I'm pretty close to wrapping up, but so if you want to try FarmOS, you can try it for free through Farmier. I mentioned you just go to farmier.com/signup. This will be FarmOS version 1, which is different than what I just showed, but has most of the same features. And once version 2 is available, you'll be upgraded automatically to that as well. So moving forward, we have a lot of plans and discussions around more integrations with e-commerce platforms. And one in particular that we're really excited about connecting with is a group called Open Food Network. Open Food Network is another open source community and software platform that focuses on kind of the other side of it focuses on the distribution side, on the food. So it basically allows creation of food hubs and connects producers and consumers. So whereas FarmOS focuses a lot on kind of the back office record keeping of what you're doing, OFN allows for selling of produce and things like that. So FarmOS, we're really interested in supporting the ability to have integrations with OFN and other e-commerce platforms. So that's something we're discussing a lot of. So I see some questions in the chat. Maybe I'll follow up in the chat if that makes sense, or I could answer them here.
Great, that sounds good. I think you might have answered Carrie's questions about the links to Excel and.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Yep. So FarmOS has a CSV importer, and yeah, there's other ways to do it too. Either via you can write a custom script to pull data in using the API. There's other ways to, and I'll put some links in the chat too, both for FarmOS and Open Food Network and other things. So I think that's it. Thank
you so much, Michael. That was great.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it. And now
Sure.
we'll turn it over to Janine from Farmbrite.
Thank you so much. Let me share my screen. Just let me get together here. Hold on just a moment. Okay. So a couple things here. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate the time and being here. I am Janine Russell, and I'm the co-founder of Farmbrite. We started in 2013, really 2012, but we kind of just go by 2013. And we have a small farm, and we really saw in the market that there needed to be just a better way of utilizing technology and tracking the data. A lot of the individuals that I came across, friends and people that I bought livestock from and, plant starts and that kind of thing, they were all doing their record keeping online, or I'm sorry, in like notebooks and 3-ring binders. And, it was just, they kind of had stacks of papers all over the place with the best, with really high hopes of putting that information into a system and having a system, but it never quite got to the point where they were putting it anywhere. So my partner and I really worked or have been working for the last 10 years to help people, farmers, really put that in that information in somewhere where they can look at it and make business decisions. So really, when it comes to that's really what we do. We are a seed to sale software, and that is a SaaS product. So that's online or through a mobile device or laptop, however you want to, however you can get to the internet, you can access the software. We also have an offline mobile, native mobile app that you can download onto your phone, or you can just use your phone to access your Farmbrite account through just if you have cell service. So we really try to look at farming in a holistic light. So looking at where you're grazing, how you're growing, how those kind of interact together, your planning and operations, sales, and how you're following up with customers, your resource management. Where did you, when was the last time you changed the air filter in your tractor and that kind of thing, finance management and accounting, trying to make that Schedule F easier at the end of the year. And then finally reporting all of that back to you after you've done the hard work of actually, taking care of all your livestock and crops, and then entering that information into a system, reporting that information back to you so that you can see what your profit and loss is, what are those good business decisions that you should be making as a farmer. And those are not based on our recommendations. It's just seeing what your data is giving back to you. And really every farmer is going to do this a little differently. So we've tried to make Farmbrite really versatile. So we do both crops and livestock. The livestock management side is grazing, breeding, due dates, treatments and measurements, tasks and reminders, notes, images, you can put in all of your pedigree information, where they're grazing. So it gets really, really down to the nitty gritty, and all of that information that you enter can be pulled out and looked at. And again, is that animal healthy? It's not weighing very much now, or it's dropping weight. I really need to maybe quarantine that animal and make different decisions about that. Or based on your crop management and tracking. So that's another piece that we handle from seed to sale. So you can take your crop and take that seed that you've purchased and know what lot number that seed is, put it in the ground and see where that grows, how that grows, transplant it if you need to, and see how that grows, harvest it, put it right into your inventory, and then sell that in our e-commerce platform or your own e-commerce platform. So there's lots of different functionality there as well, but to help you plan, to help you track, to help you keep track of the nutrients, the soil, and harvesting. And then also going back to that sales. We also help with the schedule and tasks. So, and the work orders. So, and I'll show you this in a minute in the software, but the schedule and tasks are really, you know, they're really key to what you're getting done, and boots on the ground and what your farm hands are helping you with. And so keeping all of those individuals speaking to each other, you can do that through tasks and schedule, and have that all in one place. And they'll show up on your phone. You can access them through any of those other places that I was talking about before. So bookkeeping and accounting. So that's record keeping for your books. And so it's just an easy to use farm accounting. We have a lot of people that come to us who really don't like QuickBooks. They find it cumbersome, and they don't want to use that. And so we've created farm accounting software that is easy to use. And then the real important part there is that it gives you the information about where you're making money, where you're not making money, where you should maybe cut those losses, or that make kind of business decisions that way. And let's see, so inventory and warehouse and equipment management, that's like another piece that we help with. And so you can take your, you can harvest your eggs and put them right into your inventory, and know like which storage area you've put them in. Was that a walk-in cooler? Which shelf was that? Was that, you know, were those brown eggs? Were they white eggs? So that all that kind of data can go into Farmbrite, and it'll store that for you historically to show you how that group of animals is producing. And again, to give you business decisions about that. It's versatile. So it could be those inventory areas could be a closet or a barn, could be a grain storage. You can store anything, air filters, seeds, or whatever. So we've tried to make all of the software very versatile, because, as I said, each farmer is going to do this a little differently, and we're just providing the tool, and how you dig with it is totally that's totally up to you. And another part is the e-commerce platform. So that's just a place where you can take your products online. So we heard from our customers that that was frustrating. They didn't enjoy some of the software that was available. And so we created a software that integrates with those other pieces, just kind of making that easy for them. So yeah, so that's kind of the software in a nutshell. So we try to make it streamlined for you, and easy to use, and so that you guys are more productive. We support all kinds of different people all throughout the world. And that's, you know, really interesting work and exciting to talk to dual producers and apiaries and fisheries and aquaponics and, you know, as well as the cattle ranchers. So it's, and everybody, as I said, does it a little differently, but we all kind of do it the same too. So that's kind of fun to see. I'll show you the software. Hang on for a second. Hold hold for a moment. Says, sorry. All right, so this is the software. Sorry, I was just looking in the chats to see if anyone had any questions. This is the dashboard. And so it shows your weather and some information about your tasks, if you have any available, or breeding statuses or fields planted, animal types, and a real quick overview of your income versus expense. So lots of different charts and graphs, and if you're a visual learner, that's really good for you. And so lots of people like that. So here's your schedule and tasks. You can go in there and add new items here on your schedule. You can we have different views of your tasks. We have Kanban board, which just means that you can move those around. You can call these different things from your account settings. There's a lot of different functionality in your account settings. And I won't, for brevity, I will just kind of say there's lots of different ways to sort these items to see like what is past due, what users are available, and also, you know, who you can assign things to, and they'll get a notification. Livestock, there's a ton of information here. And so it goes really deep, really quickly. Once you go into the animals, you can have different groups and move those around in a bulk way. So you can make bulk harvests in your crop section, bulk inventory, and bulk movement. So if I'm going to move a whole herd of goats, then I can do them all together. Or if I'm going to give them a shot or you know, hoof trim or something like that, you can do that and make a quick note. You can import here from if you have a CSV file, and down here you can download your data at any time. There is a grazing area, and this is a record of your inventory. So that's that reporting, those reporting features that I was talking about. So we have a ton of standard reports that talk about or just help you pull your data out. And then we also offer custom reports. You can search throughout the software from a global search. So if you're like, I just want to find this animal really fast, you can do that. We also utilize QR codes, so you can print those out and like laminate them, or just honestly put masking tape or something on them and put them somewhere where you can scan that with your phone or mobile device and quickly enter a record about that item. Crop section is honestly just as, it gets just as deep as quickly. There's yield comparisons year over year, lots of different information about succession planting and how much you've harvested from this specific area. But for sake of brevity, I'm not going to go into that in great detail, but I'm happy to talk to anybody about that if they want. Resources area is equipment, warehouses, and inventory. So you can put delivery trucks or, you know, chainsaws or whatever, and you can like put in information about the maintenance, and that links to your accounting. So it really just helps you kind of keep track of what's going on. And in the crops and livestock, I didn't drill down, but there's all this type of information as well, like soil samples and treatments, and all of that type of data can be collected here. Accounting. So this is just giving you a quick profit and loss up here. The profit and loss is here, and there's also a cash flow report. So you can say I, started with this amount of money, and then I can tick off from that how much I've utilized. We do not connect to banks. So it is, this information is collected by importing from your financial institution or just recording a transaction. You can filter and sort and find all kinds of different information just by searching. This is our e-commerce platform. So here are your products and your orders. This breaks or gives you a lot of different options to, if you have a website, you can have an iframe and just have that data on your own or your website or that shop on your website in an iframe form, or you can utilize the free one that we have. So this is your orders. When you get a new one, it pops up and tells you that you have a new order, and then you can fill that and have a pick inventory, or you can mail an invoice if you've set that up as online payments. So lots of different functionality. I'm going really fast, but I just wanted to try to get through all of this so you know it's there. The market does attach to the contacts. So you can import these or export. And so it's a small place to keep your customer base or veterinarian information or vendors or anything like that. We do have those farm map, the capability. So this is like, I'm grazing in this area. I have this water here. You can add buffer zones for different types of growing situations, for organic certification. You can see where your irrigation ditches are, or if you have like water or different types of growing enclosures. So there's lots of functionality. I'm like flying through here, but I just want to make sure that I get all of that there. Let's see, is there accounting module or cash accrual based? Is that a question for, I'm assuming that's for Farmbrite, but I don't want to.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Yes. So the accounting, we actually have just an accounting module. So, we don't call them modules, but we call them subscriptions because we are a subscription-based platform. Just like I would, pay you for your maple syrup. I'd want, like we're just here for to help, but also we all have to pay our bills. So that is how it is, a subscription base. And there is an accounting module, or subscription, as I said. And it is cash. So it is, you just add your like transactions as you go through. And so that accrues that way. So that was really all that I had to share with Farmbrite. I can certainly go over more within the software now. If there's other questions, it is very comprehensive and versatile, and it really we've spent a really long time perfecting it and like really listening to what farmers have to say. And so I hope you guys will check it out.
Can you you share with folks an average range of the cost of the product or the subscription, or does it depend on how many modules that you're signing on to?
Yeah, so the cost is, the accounting is $9 a month. And that goes up to, depending on if you're paying monthly or yearly, it's $95 a month. So that there is a range. And so if you want all of everything, then it does get up there. But if you're just looking for those basic different, and I don't call them modules, but yes, like you know what I'm trying to say. There's a question that says, does it do what if scenarios? So I'm assuming that that is in a, so you could certainly add items in that's like, okay, I'm going to spend this much on bees, and I'm going to, if I invest this much in that, hopefully I'm getting this much honey out of that. And then I could sell that. And it does kind of give you that like expected amount to kind of help you with those what if scenarios. And then you could just delete that if you decided like not to go through with that. Customers log in to our Farmbrite to place orders via the, so yes, so you can, your customers can access Farmbrite or your Farmbrite store through either your website or the URL that is provided through Farmbrite. So you can, they just log in and it shows a shop and has, all of your produce or whatever you're selling, your products, and then they can check out at the end, and then you'll get a notification that you have a new order. And we do also offer if you decide to go, we use Stripe as our payment processor. So if you decide to go with Stripe, then there's also a it's kind of like a quick pay. So you can print out a QR code and put that on your farm stand. And if people don't have cash, then they could scan that with their phone. And you might have to give them directions, but they can scan it with their phone and then they can just pay online. And we do not collect a percentage of the sales.
I had a question. If someone was using a different e-commerce platform, how would their data integrate with your platform?
So you can, so if they were using a different e-commerce platform, it depends on if they're doing that. I guess it depends on which part of the data they wanted to pull in. So if that's the financial data, that would obviously be in the accounting section. And then if it was the inventory management, that gets a little more tricky. We are working on an API. So that's coming this next in 2022. So we will be able to, you can use that API to integrations. We're also looking at those. So in the, you can add taxes. The question was, does it do taxes or produce or produce a summary to prepare taxes? So we have a link to, I believe it's TaxJar and maybe Avalara that you can link to if you have information or if you have an account set up with them. So so you can like look at that information, and so we don't collect that information or that part of the payment. You can add that to if a person pays online and they don't automatically pay. So if they're paying cash and they're going to pick up later and they're going to pay for that later, and or if you have a CSA membership and they're just you're kind of taking that off their CSA membership, then you can charge those taxes in a different way, but we don't collect them.
Great. Well, thank you, Janine. If there aren't any other questions at the moment, maybe we'll turn it over to, oh, sorry, Carrie had a question. Did I miss that? Oh, do you collect a percentage of the sales? If that was the question, I think you said you do not, correct?
Yes, we do not.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Great. And just one question for my notes. You said the accounting module is $9 a month, or you could spend up to $95 a month, depending on how many subscriptions or how many subscriptions you might be adding. Is there like a general fee that you would say an average fee that most of your farmers are paying or subscribing to?
Most people go, most farmers go with the plus plan, which is kind of an average, it's like in the middle. And we are opening up again our just farm or just crops and just livestock, because we get a lot of questions about that. So we, if you don't see one of those options on our website, like know that's coming. But we are bringing that back because that's popular. But yeah, so in the middle, people are generally in the middle. But yeah, if I could offer any advice to farmers, it doesn't really matter which software you use or system, just as long as you use some system and record it some way. So that's the hardest part, honestly. But that if I could give any advice, that would be it.
That's great advice. I really appreciate you saying that. I think that is hard. Nothing is good if you don't use it, right?
That's right. That's right.
Great. I'm not sure if Rich has joined us yet. I don't see him. Oh no, there you are. I do see you, Rich. Hi, sorry about that. You're right in the middle. So welcome, and thanks for agreeing to share your experience and how you use these online software platforms to make decisions. So I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thanks. Jennifer, I appreciate the time to talk to other future farmers and fellow farmers out there. So my name's Rich Fauché. I run Fauché Farms. I restarted the family farm here in the northern Shenandoah. So I'm at the corner of 4 states, Virginia, West Virginia, near the dog leg that sticks out towards the east, Maryland, and Pennsylvania. And so it's a unique area because a lot of what I have to do with regard to
Oh, I think we lost your audio for a second. At least I did.
my headset died.
Oh, okay. There we go. Now I can hear you.
Headset died. Thought I had it charged. Sorry about that. So with all these states around here, there's a lot of there are a lot of different unique expenses being in an area so close to all these different state borders. So that affects livestock, and when I sell meat products and egg products and what I have to track. So every kind of movement of any kind of product that I have, I have to take a deep dive into the accounting about what's going to be the most cost effective use of my time and what I'm doing. So just a little bit of my background.
I was raised north of Lowell, Massachusetts, and I was a farmhand up there and in southern New Hampshire. And then my other family farm, the Fauchets, were up in Maine in Acadia. As you can tell, it's a French name. So, I had 11 years doing that until I graduated my undergrad. And after retiring from the supply chain world as an exec and retiring from the Marines, I decided to go back to farming and start the business up again for the family. My farm is an integrated farm. It's a full use farm or produce. I've got an orchard, livestock. I just have chickens and ducks right now. I'll be getting goats and swine next month. And so when I was looking at, what kind of system I could use, I pulled out the old green accounting books, and those were the monsters that we used when I was back in the 80s and 70s, when I was a kid. And I thought, I've been around spreadsheets a long time. I want to do something better. And I started searching on software as service, and lo and behold, Farmbrite was there for me. And I'll tell you, it's already made a world of difference for me. And a large part of it is the tracking, and the things that Janine had gone over are keeping an account of every time you touch something on your farm. If you're giving feed to the animals, you're giving them scratch, you're watering them, the amount of time that you spend on a particular project, all of those are costs based on, what it costs you to actually get your own paycheck, because you want to incorporate that as a farmer. You're not in business to go out of business. So this isn't a free enterprise. This is a farm business. It's a business just like any other. And so when I buy fertilizer, or I have to use all natural pest repellent, and I take a look at costs, I want to see how much that's going to cost on an entire growing bed, and what's that going to do to affect the price of, say, a bulb of garlic. Because I got to price it so that it's within reach of folks, as well as being able to protect my crops. And some of those decisions I can make with the best of the granularity that Farmbrite offers. And I've had a couple of discussions with Janine about some suggestions here and there about like the warehousing thing was one. I had a whole bunch of seeds in 2020. I had I couldn't get any equipment, and I was putting it in a cold storage area, and I said, I can go right into the menu and I can put in a type of plant, but I don't have a place to put unplanted seeds. And so I needed an inventory. They created one, and now is it okay if I share a little bit of my screen? Okay, let me see.
Yes, feel free.
So we're gonna do, I think that's this one right here. There we go. Hold to shift to share. Okay, can you see my screen right now? Jen, can you see my screen?
Yes, looks great.
Okay. So so I have livestock, and I have crops. I'll have an orchard. Right now I'm in the building stage of most of the infrastructure, because this farm, when we bought it back in 2019, it was pretty dilapidated. And so I've been getting an awful lot of my infrastructure straightened away. So the first place I always wake up to in the morning is my dashboard. And right now it's not very exciting. I have my small number. It's the winter, so I've only got alliums planted for the overwinter, and then the rest of the fields are fallow. But I'm in the process of putting manures down and green cover crops, and I haven't gotten that data in there yet. My animal types, I've only got 2 ducks and chickens, so that's kind of a breakdown of what I have. And it has been an unprofitable year, but that's because this year and the previous year I had planned this is going to be a lot of infrastructure building, so I'm spending a lot of money. I don't have a lot of tasks listed in here, but Janine, it's a really useful, and I live by it. But at the end of the day, I finish them all off. I don't try to keep any of them on there. And that's I'm up until like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night out in the field sometimes getting things done. But each one of these areas is important. And when Janine went into like groups and animals and the granularity of each one of them, like I have red sex links, and I can get down into some real deep details into all of them. And inside here, all of this is very important because there's only one livestock, and this doesn't really affect chickens and ducks so much, but we only have one livestock veterinarian within a 60-mile radius of where I live in Berryville, Virginia. And so a lot of what you buy on hand, when I have cattle and I have the swine, I've got turkeys, and I end up having sheep and goats for the ethnic market, is having that medicine. And how much should I buy, and how much should I keep, and is it worth it having that? It depends on the sheep. If I have sheep that are really trying their hardest to die on me, is it worth me to keep that breed? Because I got to keep so much of this medicine. And then when I take a look at how I price out my meat, it's too expensive for anybody in the region to afford except the rich people. So, so this becomes really important. And I haven't gotten down into the granularity of this with regard to these animals, because, you buy them, there's not as much maintenance with chickens and ducks, but when it comes to the four-legged ones and your ruminants, it's much more important. Same can be said of crops. When I take a look at my crop plan right now, these aren't all of my garlic that are in there. I've got some overwinter shallots, and I'll have leek seeding because I'm using a different hardiness zone this year. Instead of 6B, I'm using 7A, and it gives me, and let me get this out of the way here. Let's see, put this over here. You can see a little bit of the crop plan. That helps me with regard to, timing when I can expect certain periods where I need to either add fertilizer or certain amendments into the soil, using the different pieces of information I get out of the crops. See, let's go into here with let's just take one of the crops here. We'll go with garlic. This is the red chestnut red. And so we got future plantings, harvest, yield comparisons. Somebody asked about yield comparisons. I haven't done any of these recently, but you can go in there and play around with it to see, how much can you spend on those beds before you have to say, you know what, I got to let it wash. I'm going to plow it under. It's not worth it for me. I can't sell it. And the spotted lanternfly have taken over. I'm just going to have to let it go. We deal with that. We have the spotted lanternfly. It's about 5 miles from my location, and I'm praying to God that it doesn't get here, because Japanese beetles are bad enough. These things are even worse. So, when someone asks, you got a yield comparison, you can go backwards and forwards, whatever way you want with it, and take a look at comparisons. On resources, I have a few things in here. Again, most of my focus has been getting my infrastructure up and running, but I'll be including some of that in here, and I'm transcribing an awful lot of it from like just handwritten books and some spreadsheets. But for instance, let's take a look here. My Ford 1750 trailer that was left for me. It's not leased, it's actually purchased. Well, not leased, it was handed over to me, but I can put in all kinds of information in here for like a preventive maintenance plan, adding your preventive maintenance. You can take a look at accounting. I've got a bunch of different parts that I've had to buy for it. I spent $852 to get the thing up and running because the hydraulics were just completely blown. And you can get down into you can get even more granular in there, because you can go down and take a look at each individual part to see how much you're spending. So if you're spending a lot of money on fan belts, because I don't know, I'll just make something up, fan belts don't do well in this heat, and they just rot. You can take a look at how much you're spending on fan belts for your tractor. one thing that is great, and I asked Janine a little bit about this, was images. I have about 200 pictures I took around the farm this past week of all of my assets. I have individual pictures of each bird. Now, granted, I've only got 30 birds right now, so that's pretty easy. I think later on it'll probably be a big picture of a flock instead of like individual birds when I have layers and meat birds. But you can take an image of each one of those, put it up on the particular asset, and it has a purpose. Like when I do have employees, they're going to know which one to look at. For instance, I've got like several hand push lawnmowers around here, but they're all for different purposes. So if I say that it's a Briggs and Stratton versus the Toro, and the person doesn't know that the Toro is only used for edging around the front areas by the hop field, they're going to have to look at it. They can see the picture and go, oh yeah, that's the one I use around the hop field. The accounting thing has been a blessing. I'll just tell you right now. I mean, this is all inputs. I've got, this coming year, 2022. My plan is to see mostly green in here and not red. And again, this is all investment into the barn and a bunch of other pieces of the property. But like I've sold a bunch of eggs just to the local farm supply. Inside here in these transactions, if I want to record a transaction, I can put an income and expense. There's a whole slew of categories that they provide. And, if it's a new category that somebody hasn't thought of, and most of them fit into here, you can, you send an email over to Farmbrite and say, hey, can you add, I don't know, kombucha selling or something like that. I don't know, whatever. And you put that in there. But I've been using this, and last year in 2020, I handed over the download from this accounting module to my CPA, and that's all he needed. He just looked at me and said, okay, Rich, I got everything I need. If I wanted to add anything in a transaction like taxes or some other things in there, I'm trying to remember where it was in here, because I saw it, Janine, and it was I used it when I printed out some invoices for a couple of retailers in Leesburg, Virginia. Let's see here. Let's see. Well, yeah, you're going to have to get a membership to Farmbrite, everybody, in order to find that piece of information. Okay. Sorry. The farm map, real important for me. I know a couple of people have talked about it. I like that they use the detail of, I think they use it off a Google map, because what I can also do is I can superimpose my soil types if I want to. I've managed to figure that out, and to show where my corresponding topography layers are for what soil types I've got, and that helps me with my soil tests. And in particular, each one of these things can be identified and you can mark them. This is the field 6 grow paddock, clover, chestnut, and experimental. I'm going to be raising hybridized American chestnuts, try to get those bad boys back up and running along the eastern seaboard. But one area down here in this, and this is why the paddock layout is important. Down here, the restricted grow paddock I have, I don't tell my neighbor, but when I bought this property, the person that owned this farm also owned these 2 houses over here, and they decided to put the leach field in one of the main paddocks, and they didn't tell us about it, and I went off the deep end. I almost lost it. So instead of making a big stink and not being neighborly, because now these 2 homes are owned by a different person, I have a restriction here until this gets settled out. If they decide to make a new, put in a new leach field, I can't grow any kind of leafy vegetables. I can't really grow any vegetables. I'm not going to take the risk. So I just grow flowers for the apiary operation that my wife takes care of, which is up here, is the apiary beehives. And you talked, Janine mentioned about buffer zones. For all of you planning, and since I know that this is financial risk, and I had a lot of training as a with my veteran training, my veteran farmer training that I got from a bunch of different places. Your ingress and egress, sorry about that, everyone. Just my mouse is sensitive. Your ingress and egress in and out of areas is very important. Over here, I have my future layout for my my greenhouses. I got this area here right now. It's under construction. Good God, this thing is just crazy. This is my composting area. I have 4 composting lanes for rotating. This is where I'll be building a equipment shed for the tractor and the implements. And when I was laying this out, the map feature, and to the other gentleman is Jeff, I think, was talking about you know, whether it was a field or whatnot. These are grazing areas. So this is a central paddock, but it's restricted to grazing. This dogleg is restricted to grazing. And my grow areas are only this main core area. I got an orchard here. That's the farm orchard. This is a grow paddock. This is a combination grow paddock and animals, but this whole area down here, that's where I'm going to have hogs and goats. And I have them in 4 different sections because it's going to be a rotational system that I'll have. This is also a grow paddock, but it can be switched off for grazing. And I have 84 acres. So for what I need, the 84 acres is great. And Farmbrite pretty much takes care of everything I need. It's got all of the intricacies and the detail, the granularity that I need in order to make really smart decisions. It's just a matter of, you know, it's only as good as what you put into it. So if I mean, you already saw that I didn't have much in the way of, maybe not resources, but say some of the crops. Like I've got a lot of crops in here, but I've only got 3 planted. I still have, I'm looking at this is all of this year's crops. Last year's stuff for 2020. I was just a fumbling idiot when it came to doing all this stuff. And I was still using my spreadsheets on my Excel. But now that I'm getting more and more familiar with this, I'm getting much more comfortable with it. And I'm actually pricing better than some of the other folks that are right now with eggs and some duck. My pricing, I sold out of eggs. I sell out of eggs every week, and I sold off 15 ducks a month ago, and they were all, you know, I wasn't going poor, and I made profit on each one of them. So yeah, so that's pretty much my my story with regard to Farmbrite. I love it, and I know I'm going to love it more because there's a lot more I haven't even discovered how to do yet. So I don't know if anybody has any questions. How do I get out of not share?
You can just stop share at the top, or I'm happy to stop for you if that's easier.
Okay. Let's see.
One question that came up is, at what scale, I mean, this is for any of our presenters, but at what scale do you feel like folks need to be, or how much revenue they're generating to use an app? I mean, is it acreage? Is it dollars? Is it any kind of physical scale to start using kind of these online software platforms?
I tell everybody to start using it right away. I'm on a learning curve. And that has to go straight up because I'm pretty ambitious. I'm aggressive about what I want to do. But even if you're an urban farmer and you're going to do greens for the local farmers market or whatnot, I mean, you want to track everything in detail, and and this is a little bit of my supply chain mentality. Every time you touch either a seed or dirt or potting mix or putting a plant in the ground, I mean, a lot of farmers will tell you they're in the business of moving stuff, and whether it be moving cattle or moving food or feed rather, or manure, or if you're planting, moving moving transplants into the ground, you know. So each one of those tasks has got a money value to it, and the more granular you can get, I mean, you can get carried away with it, but you should get yourself into a habit. And I would say, you know, using it at even the smallest of scales. I don't know if anybody else agrees
Well, at the carrot project, we basically say, do a cash flow plan. If your cash flow can support it and it's going to enhance your record keeping or cause you to keep records where you might not otherwise, then we would say do it.
Yeah, I always tell people to start small and, you know, kind of step into like what they feel is manageable and what they, what their, you know, what their comfort level is. And then, you know, supplement with those other, you know, free options or spreadsheets or whatever, but, you know, and just find, as I said before, find something that works for you and do that and do it, you know, more often than not, because I think that's another thing that happens is people kind of put it off and then it's at the end of the year and they're like, oh, wow, I have a lot. So.
Oh, Michael, I don't think we can hear you, but I see you trying to speak.
Is that working now?
Oh, yep, that works.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was just going to say I agree with all of that. And, you know, record what you're going to need to remember later. And that's going to vary from person to person. But yeah, I think, yeah.
One other
Records
question I had for all of you, you know, it's a lot of time to set up these systems. Do you have an average? I mean, I know you can, farmers who are very adept at technology can probably set up some of these things quickly. Folks that for whom this is new, do you guys have an average or a sense of like how much investment is it upfront to get us whatever platform you choose or whatnot, kind of customized to your needs? And then specific to Michael, I know there's a lot of, I've looked at your website before and been intimidated, like how much of a programmer or code writer or whoever do you need to be to use FarmOS, or is it pretty plug and play if you're interested in that? Sorry, that was two separate questions.
Yeah, no, you don't need to be a programmer at all. You can get started very easily. You don't need to host it yourself if you don't want to. And as for how long it takes to get started, it really depends on, I think, what you're recording and what you need to record. But often with FarmOS, the first thing that people will do is map their fields and then, you know, just decide what it is that they want to track, because you don't need to track everything. It depends on, it really depends on like what will bring value to, you know, to what you're recording and what you need to be tracking. So depending, you know, if you're tracking a lot of animals, like you have hundreds of animals, there's different ways in FarmOS to do that. You can either put them in as individual animals, but that might be overkill in some cases, like for chickens, for example. So in that case, you know, you might just have a flock that has a head count, and then you can make adjustments to that head count over time. Yeah, and then similarly for plantings too. So startup time will vary a lot depending on how granular you want to get with it, I think.
I kind of second that. So, you know, depending on, you know, there's lots of different kind of tips and tricks that we have to get your data in there quickly. If you have that in a place that is already, you know, ones and zeros in some form. So using CSV files, you can upload a lot of that data. So that does shave off a lot of time for animals. If you're going back in years for the data for crops, that gets a little bit more challenging. So, you know, for some of our regenerative farmers, they want to track like, you know, 5 years worth of data. And that is a little bit more intensive. Like, what was I doing to the land? And, you know, what did my, you know, so uploading soil samples and getting really granular that way is a little bit challenging. But again, I always tell people just start small and just take little bites until you can get the data in there the way you like it. So.
There's another question in the chat. Is there a standalone version that's not web-based?
So with FarmOS, you can download it and just install it on your local computer if you want to. And then in that case, you're sort of hosting it locally. The disadvantage there is you can't access it then from your phone unless you configure your network in such a way, or other people can't access it from other parts of the internet. But yeah, that is possible.
For Farmbrite, we are a SaaS company, so it is in the cloud. There is no like downloadable version except on your phone. The mobile native mobile app does work very similarly to a desktop version at this point. So there is that option. But I hesitate to even say that you should go that way. I know I talk to a lot of people who have versions of software that way, and it gets buggy. It gets what you have is not, a lot of times like it gets to be. It is standalone and you have your data, but then you're kind of stuck with what you have. So you can't, there's no new versions, there's no improvements. It's just that. So for what it's worth.
Hey, if I could jump in here. One of the things I mentioned to my wife was I'm by myself on these 82 acres, and it's not huge like an Iowa farm with 5,000, but I'm by myself, and I moved from the Bay Area, California, and my last position was in biotechnology supply chain, and that whole industry, and it has to do with safety and custody of in this case food. Was why can't I use the technology that they use in the high tech fields out on my farm? I want to have remote, I see these pictures and these videos of these big, massive farms with guys with an iPad on their tractor tracking all kinds of satellite stuff. Why can't I have it as a small farmer? And so what I think is important about having a software as service product is that it's synced. And so you don't have to go, like if you do a bunch of tasks during the day and you're out in the field and you're on say you're on your tractor and you're at the far end of of my 82 acres, say trimming cherry trees or something, and then you had to realize you had to stop and do something different with the cattle, and now that's a different task in a different area, and you're just trying to balance out what your tasks are versus your costs and whatnot. You got to remember all that stuff or jot it down on a piece of paper and then go back to your office in your farm office, and then you got to type it all in. If I'm out there with an iPad and it's attached to the tractor or my my four-wheeler, and I go, okay, I just fed a whole bunch of feed to the goats. I just did nail trimming on half of the cattle and the steers, and now I'm going to go over to the orchard and I'm going to do this, and I can put it in right away, hit the sync button, and it syncs into, in this case for me, it's Farmbrite. And so it's, to me, it's a no-brainer, and it helps me because it's like I'm going to use a military term. It's a force multiplier. It's a multiplier in my effort, and it takes me to a different level of being able to accomplish a lot more as a single person. And I feel less anxiety about what I'm doing out there and tracking things when I have that little data pad with that ability to do that. I don't know if that helps folks, but that's how I use it in a practical manner for myself.
That's super helpful. Thank you so much for sharing. And it's great to have, I know, many of you are farmers, and, Janine and I think Michael too come from farming backgrounds, and Jeff, almost everybody here on the call. So really appreciate everybody's contributions and all the work that you've put into this space to make these products available for all of us to better track our data. I think farmers have a notorious reputation for not loving that part of our job. Some folks are real data geeks, but others, that's the last thing they want to do. So anything that can help us do this easier to really keep track of the millions of things that farmers keep in their heads every day and have to balance is great. So I really appreciate all the work that you've all done and sharing your experience with us. So I know we're at time here. I want to launch our final poll, just those 2 quick questions again. If folks don't mind answering, hopefully you've learned a little bit of something at the end of this. And I just want to thank our speakers again, to Jeff for being here and sharing what the Carrot Project does, and to Michael for all the great work you're doing across so many levels to make this open and accessible and customizable, and to Janine for developing a great one-stop shop platform for farmers, and for Rich for vouching for how you've used it and how you've helped make decisions. So thank you all so much. I encourage you again to check out our next workshop, which is a week from tonight, Thursday, December 16th at 6 p.m. Eastern, and we'll talk about transitioning from Excel to QuickBooks. So if you're not quite ready to sign on to a whole software platform that does everything, baby steps. For some farmers, that's a big leap, going from just getting out of spreadsheets into something that's a financial management software. So we'll talk about that and then come back to production record keeping and other things in the new year. So look forward to seeing you all then, and thank you so much again. And if you all have questions, I hope you don't mind. I did, when I sent out the email, and I'll send up some follow-up resources tomorrow and then postings on the website. I'm copying our presenters so that if people do have follow-up questions, feel free to reach out. All right, so thank you all, and good night, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.